Hi, this is Willima Schaaf, and I'm going to give you a little tour and tell you a few stories about some of these long-term pieces here at the Cofrin Gallery at the Oak Hall School. This painting is called Ardennes, and For My Mom was later added to it. And this is another painting that was a great teacher for me. It's a photograph blow-up on a canvas from a book of unusual horses, in this case a lot of powerful horses. And it was done in the mid-80s. It was done in 3 sessions, actually 2 weeks in one session, 2 weeks in another section, and 2 weeks at the funeral. The occasion was my mother was dying of cancer. It was a 2-year process. It was very frustrating for all of us. And all of this unconscious at the time. The stories always come later. So I did the photo blow up, and I just was painting it and got so far, and then painted it again during the middle of her process, and then painted it, finished it after her passing. And the story that seemed to come up was that I was trying to make a very powerful identity with this horse, this very strong, powerful horse, as a way to ground myself and a way to really, frankly, deal with all of these very trying issues that were going on, very emotional times, and in that dying process. Yet at the same time, I was saying, well, look, I'm dissolving this away here. Maybe to talk about how life is so transitional. Later on we had here, which would normally have been maybe, I don't know, mountains, and they come and read themselves as like maybe other riders, and then what was just a kind of streak then became a lightning bolt supercharging down. Anyway, very strong piece owned by Marianne Cofrin. Very happy that they have it. So now we walk over here, which relates to the Ardennes For My Mom, and also for the next barn. So they're all kind of powerful and Botero looking pieces. And this, they're all done in the mid to late 80s. The awareness that they were a, quote, unity or a family came later as well to my consciousness. And so this was actually, Paul Fullerton and I were teaching at Wayne State in the late 70s in Detroit. So this was probably some student had taken this page and said, oh, he made a mark on it and said, oh, I failed, and they threw it away. And so those are the best things I like, and I grabbed it out, and it was sat on the floor, and see the little marks here were my shoe print and kind of what made it gray. And at one point in its existence, it came only to about here, and it was a cartoon horse. Just wasn't playing with it. And then I just made it realistic was interested in another realistic horse out of the same book that the Ardennes came from. And in order to make this work, the border was here. So I just pulled this whole thing back and gave it some breathing space in here because that was coming out. And the same thing all along down here. And this is a true drawing. It's just Prismacolors only, and which is the best pencil company and the best powders. So, and then while I'm writing all the time as well and listening to things. So I said at one point, I said, boy, this is great. I really liked it. So I said, oh, there's the title. We'll call it Great Horse here. And then start so-and-so, start again, start 2B, blah, blah, blah. And then sometimes I hardly ever put my name out front really loud, so it's probably hidden in here somewhere. But I love this. So this is the drawing counterpart of Ardennes. I've probably been asked to sell it maybe a dozen times, and I just want to keep it. I love it. And so that becomes a kind of drawing analogy and a part of the family. So the next piece is, it was sort of, looked like I don't know, it was unformed, it looked like a sheep, and then I came in and I got it to this point very quickly. Quickly meaning like an hour, hour and a half, went boom, boom, boom like that. Had a big saw blade here to make the mane and just cutting in it back and forth like that. And so he imagined this in clay, and so he waited. He was so, I don't know, he was just nervous about it. He must have waited 6 weeks afterwards thinking about how was he going to glaze it. So he glazed it with a Celadon glaze, not this, but the original, which was very, like the Chinese use it all the time. It can be very pale blue and pale green, pale gray-green. Ancient Chinese colors like that. So from the original, we called this Chinese rainbow. And so it became its name. So eventually we made a bronze of it. This is 6 out of 8 in the edition. Jennifer Johnson of the J&J people actually came one day and said, "What have you got for the last one?" And I said, "Well, how about this?" And like that. She said, "Oh, I love it." She just got it right on the spot and then immediately gave it to her granddaughter as a present, which I thought that was really delightful. And this patina, which again, think of watercoloring with acid, is very, very unusual. Even though the game is to mimic jade and turquoise, this just rolled over almost like water. Very rich and very special now that, you know, the bronze master has passed away. You know, no one will ever have touched it with his hand like this. So again, very powerful, very part of this triad now with the family. And Marianne Cofrin also has one of these, so she has it to go with her painting. And it was interesting, it sat out by the swimming pool and it started turning all kinds of funny colors, and it actually ended up looking like a 2000-year-old Grecian piece like that, and it was all from the swimming pool vapor acids changing it like that. So we just took it down to the foundry and resealed it. So we have the same shape with bronzes in a given edition, but each patina, each look, which is then sealed, is going to be completely unique and different. And that's one of the things I really like about the bronzes. And I like this piece, I just like it for its power. It's called Strange Place, Mayan Moon. I don't know when or how it showed up. And it's still a strange painting to me, and it's still not finished. Who would know that there are 2 or 3 absolutely beautiful, completely finished, refined, wonderful paintings underneath this. And old Bill couldn't keep his hand away, and it changed and changed, you know. I should have just made another copy with it and started from a certain place. So it used to be a horse that came up here, looked back, I mean, completely different. This is the only element here that never changed, this little Egyptian figure, which you'll also find in Peace in Israel. And I think of them as guides and guards and guardians and stuff. So I've often said, you know, they're day places or night places. You know, I've been in the Yucatan, I've been in South America. There are strange things in the night that happen, and so that's why it's a dream time, but it's more than that. It's a travel, it's an astral travel, and it's called Strange Place, Mayan Moon. And this was a figure that we laid on in the beginning, and I didn't just know how to pull her out, you know, and then I kind of did this with it, which was the hair to this figure, and also a wing, trying to talk about that. And this was much clearer, not so dirty as it were. This was very realistic here, the hair and the energetics, and I'm just constantly, you know, it's a constant textile that's happening. This figure, this female figure came out, and it was popped and banged. It's all of this changing, all of this business here about this was actually pulled here. This is a little pyramid here, and basically the story started being these two started being face to face. Parts of self, maybe so, I don't know. And then this became this kind of winged head. And what, at the same time, this has been burnished so many times, literally sanded with sandpaper. Sanded, looking for those layers and adding on some more like thin glazes of things, which is just a lot of oil and a little tin of something. So maybe this is taking so long because these elements are in other paintings. Sometimes they just go boom, bada bing, throw the dice, turtle bones, it's there in the first place, it's getting good. But all of this really seeking and finding is all about the relationships, the spatial energetics in between here, this to this, this to this, this to this. All of this stuff that's going on. You see it here and it's going back and forth, moving around, turning around. And then one day you arrive, and then is this a background hill? Is this a hue? This is also changed. This was open and translucent as this was. You know, and you fill it up, and this comes forward. You add a little mark here, then it's an eye. And then what is it? You know, and this, I want to talk about this, and I want to nail down the essence of something, but not make it too photographic, not, I don't know. This is things that painters go through a lot. And I actually stopped painting for a long time because it just wasn't happy. And that's when I initially started stop painting paint. If it's too painful, it's because you can't resolve something and it just doesn't work for you, then I took a long hiatus. And the good news is that, actually, especially from this show and another situation, is that I'm looking at these paintings, like Gary Bone, who actually I want to give credit to, was his idea in late spring to have me do this show. He came over to the studio and he looked in the storage room. He said, I didn't even know you were a painter. And I say, well, yeah, and all these paintings were just stacked up, lying on top, never show them, never been out. So they got a new fresh life. I'm very grateful for it. I'm seeing them in a different context. And I just would like to just be able to have the time and energy to just like have another dozen or 20 of these things already stretched and have them in a row as big, and have this be my studio and go boom, boom, boom like that and just have at it like that. That would be like the cat's meow paradise. You know, I could go out with a big smile on my face with that. You know, after 50 years in rubbing sticks together, then what did the work mean to me, and what did I learn? It's that, well, many of these are such long-term pieces, and that I learned about a lot about myself, and the stories that came are only kind of looked at after a lot of pieces of time. And I could tell a story about anything because of that, but this piece here is kind of an archetype for my entire realm of work. You know, I guess if there was a masterpiece, this piece here and this accompaniment sculpture that's there next to it would be the story. So the story starts off with the process. The process is that at one point this piece of very large, beautiful cotton paper came from a roll, and it was on a little piece of gator board, and I was working on it and I was going whacka 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 like that. And I got totally frustrated one day. I took a knife to it and sliced it up into ribbons. And so I'm thinking, well, oh, you know, I'm going to do a swan dive out the third floor window, and like, this is terrible, and I was very upset about it like that. Then this little notion came, this voice said, of course that you're unhappy with it. It wasn't stable. You just kept like nothing to ground it. So we took it down to an archivalist in Miami, and we had it put on this lightweight, a very strong kind of thing, another type of gator board instead of just foam core. And then it was stable. Then I realized at the point when I, quote, ruined it, that the notion was like a voice was saying, you know, well, this is just what happened today. This is like the diary story. You had something way over your head, and you got frustrated with it, and you sliced it to ribbons. So okay, it's still here. I'll make it work. It's definitely an archaeological find. It has a history now. And this was probably a 20-year piece or more, and so this is how it really became something. And it was very loose and very painterly, and lots of air and space in between it, and it got slowly filled in, more filled in. And so eventually it came to a place where it was, let's say, stable, and I would say yes, it was finished, and it was just here, which is very light. So in the process, you know, we actually went and glued back all of these cuts and things, and then you know, it gives it a sense of age and time. And then things happen in the process. This is a collage of, I don't know, something. There are birds showing up, faces, spirits, internally, externally, all over the place. Dolphin showed up here, second dolphin, water. And this very interesting landscape that actually is a person, like a spirit. I call them spirit catchers and cocoon people, and they were just how you would travel in between the spaces of things. So what we did then is we had one of my best friends, great wood person, John Mydock. We picked some bird's eye maple, which is very speckly and lovely, and we picked it on purpose so it would match this. And South American purple heart walnut, and laid it upon. And so it came home to magnificent home to live in. I mean, this must weigh about 300 pounds. This is like, 2 ounces here. So very interesting like that. So later on, these large-scale horse events, these magic carpets, these traveling beings became with another and a new different meaning. And then later on, these spirit catchers with other pieces, which we'll talk about at another point, showed up and became entities unto themselves. So I had a very good friend who, first he had a rock climbing accident. He was a rock climber and he almost was killed then. And then later at another point he flew off a mountain maybe 1,000 feet, and then that was the end of him. And so after, this has still been going on all this time, and then the way it went was that another notion showed up and it said, oh, this is a piece for Jimmy. This would be the bardo, the transition in the Tibetan mythology of getting to this life to the next life. And so then all of a sudden the dolphins, the equine pieces, all of these spirits were there to aid and guide him and have this transition be made to the next place for him. And that was basically happens a lot in my work, that the work exists, something shows up, something is evolving, and then there's a story, and that's what the story was, fanciful or not. But and that's what this represents. So we're talking, and also it has writing on it, which I write all the time, and sometimes I'm moved to write something. I could be listening to some music or anything else. So if there is a masterwork, this is probably it. Now there's a piece over here next to it. This piece is called Guardian, and it is twin to the dolphin jump the moon, i.e. they belong together, they're a pair. And the way this happened was that this was ceramic, it is ceramic, and it broke in the bisquing process, and which means we couldn't really glaze it and work with it. So I had it glued back together and had gesso on it and trying to figure out what to do. And as it turned out, when I had paint left over on the brushes while I was working this one, then I started painting this here. And then we had, it sort of began painting on both of these at the same time. So that's why they kind of look similar, and I kind of like it because it's as if this guardian jumped out of that world and sitting here in this world. Anyway, so they are a pair, and I'm very happy with the way they just kind of work themselves out. This is a long-term piece also, I was saying before, and what happens is that in the beginning I did just a lot of equine, focusing on the horse, and then as I filled them in, as time filled them in, then these creatures started showing up, these spirit guides. You can see here's one upside down here that evolved. Here's another one in the midst of things here, this other one. This is purification rites. This is about a healing. It's about working through things for myself over many years. And then the blue here showed up, and then this is sort of a little Chagall and a lot of powerful integration of things like that. A lot of these pieces will have borders around them, and the borders usually were where I was going to mat them. But what happened along the way, since they're so long, is I'm writing on them, and then I'm overlapping them, and I'm saying, well, I can't just deny it anymore. So I just included the border and then added on and filled out, and we mounted them. A lot of Shakti, a lot of fire, a lot of me in this one, a lot of energy. Obviously, it also talks about something that, when you're making a drawing or painting, and when painting teachers, Hiram Williams used to say, the thing's got to work at 7 inches, 7 feet, 27 feet. You can't, it's like your child, you're doing all this process on it, and then once it's on the wall, you can't make any excuses for it. It's what it's going to be. So always try to make them filled up, very interesting, a lot of matrix, a lot of cross-pollinating, and just having multiple adventures and surprises showing up. the way clouds go through a sky, and suddenly it's this, and then it's changed, because everything's in transition anyway. So we've got faces and dog faces and figures and some writing. I'm always writing anyway and adding things on. Love the haiku form, but I wouldn't say that's what these are. But anyway, I don't really know where to stop, but I think sometimes it just tells me, it starts kicking and it starts really, say, okay, we're done now, pretty much. And so, very satisfying piece. This is a good one, and then the way it got framed at the end was very, very lovely, as if it's in a night space. So very happy with it. Having a show like this, you know, and having it placed in such a nice arrangement, a very organic, evolving, and it was very satisfying with this. You know, you put it something in a different organic arrangement, and it starts telling you even more. So it's really fascinating. That's what a really good show is about. It's like you get dressed up, you know, the pieces put on their tuxedos, and then they start offering up things that you have no idea about, you know, and that's great. And I hope it's always the case. And then if it's that way for me, then it's got to be very interesting for the viewer, hopefully. Okay. I went to see Hector Poog, who's my favorite, and he's so good, I just let him do whatever he wants, you know. So this little guy was, I don't know how it even got started. It was like just, you know, using it for, you know, didn't even think anything about it. It must have been 5, 6 years, you know, and then suddenly I picked it up one day and, you know, well, let's color the grass green. It just colored it in, you know, and there it is. And then I think to put the yellow on it, just sort of kicked it over the fence, you know. And then when I took it to Hector, he said, well, look at how he put the gold and banged it with the yellow, and it's got this dark background. And first I look at it and say, I don't know about that. And then I've just learned to say, yeah, good eye, you know. So then we're putting it up in the show, and then we saw boom, boom, boom with these three stepping up. And here it was, and it was a dark background too, pretty much like that. And so, and I thought, well, let's put it under we had the space here with the fire hydrant, so let's put it under the fire alarm, and then the red hits the red, and then you're talking about this red here, and the whole thing is like a sculpture area. And this is the hero of it, and then you've got this red and this red and that red, and it's like, hey, good, too bad we can't take this all, you know, we'll shoot it. So this is what happens in the, you know, in the organics of a really successful setup, you know, and that's another thing that made the show just really wonderful. This is one of my really favorite pieces, and it's a supreme example of a really good wood fire, where you get up to 2300 degrees and this thing is roaring and ripping, and pieces can end up looking like tree bark. And look at this wonderful vitrine here that we want to thank Marianne Cofrin again for making this place look like a museum setup with these wonderful very lovely entities unto themselves with these plastic tops. So this piece was done at the University of North Carolina in Asheville about 5 years ago, and I was traveling through and then doing another thing in WashU in St. Louis, and so I came and did it, and it really was made with it used to be this game that I do, and it's called whiskey box horses. And you can take a whiskey box and cut it a certain way that you'll end up having 4 legs at the corners and the piece itself, and you can fold it so that you get the head on the top and your belly on the bottom. So that's what we did. And you can either burn it out or take it out later on, and so I did. And I made the legs too short, so I ended up making the base kind of like it was in a river. And then I had it made a container as well. And so I went away, and then it had been bisqued, and it came back and it warped and everything, so that was fortunate, and I could kind of grind off certain areas, and then when we fired it later and got it back later, it's like it cracked all over the place because I was working so fast with the demonstration that I didn't really have time to fuse the clay. And so here we go, you know, my wabi-sabi imperfect beauty, this kind of very archaeological thing showed up, and this whole piece over here actually blew out. And I thought it was very zen, like have a zen container, but you can take the head off, but then it's going to leak out the side. So we glued it back on, and so this very fragile. So we took it to the Museum of Natural History, and Ron Chester, the guy there, who's an old friend, so we put it in a solution of acetone and glue, and then the acetone evaporates, and then it's very strong and stable now, although it looks like it's old and fragile. And since it didn't have a tail, I found a piece of sage that we made a big pile of it from out west in northern New Mexico. And then I love just the kind of the way it just sits there. Old piece of handmade paper. And a beautiful stand by George Ferrara, who I've been collaborating with probably since the 1970s. And we make all the stands with feet on them to honor the Japanese tradition with Gary Haskins, who we used to work with and who lived in Japan. This piece is the largest, the most extensively painted, one of many of the, what I call the spirit catcher person, being, or angel. And it was partly inspired with the work of Craig Rubidoux, and when Norman Jensen and Craig Rubidoux and I did a 3-person jazz jam kind of workshop at the Ringling in 1990. And so in the beginning, this painting had a lot less intense focus and a lot more handwriting, as I call, a lot more space and a lot more lyrical, using paint as line. And then there was a period where I was in South America, and I did alkaloid medicines for sacred traveling myself with shaman folk in the mountains and in the jungles, and it changed my life very profoundly. Some of the things that changed with me was the notion about how important intention is, and how prayerful and gratitude, how important that is. And that we're really not solid beings. We're mostly water for one thing, but we have so much molecular space in between us. So we kind of, you could even say we're sort of like holograms. This is also talking about the Carlos Castaneda series of books, the luminous cord here going off, like an umbilical cord in psychic space. And so after these events doing medicines with the shaman folk, I was more interested in talking about the energetics of the space in between spaces, on a molecular level, again. So I'm talking about breaking this up into a pointillistic kind of thing almost, which is what I always did anyway, or breaking something down into cloud units. So this is then this kind of creature can come here, kind of show you that there's green landscape between. This is a hill, but it can also be an animal form. These kind of images and changing visions happen regularly under the influence, and you can go travel off in that, and then you can come back and have just a very sober conversation about it in a given point like that. It's all important with the family that you're with, and the guidance, and again, the intention. So if you ask to be brave and courageous and fearless, everything you ever had that scared the bejesus out of you will show up. So I have found it's a lot better just to say, I ask for loving things and peaceful things, and things that have to do with understanding. And so this is just kind of a story about that. So what one of the painting games I was playing, this would be the rear of the horse, and I'm talking about the heads coming, going woof, 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 like that, to try to show some version of action. So here's the figure. Many eyes, all the better to see you with. With fire and energy coming down, and then here these are a pair of knees and then a foot, so the thing is giving the idea of floating. That then if we're traveling like the old Superman movies, then we could have this kind of cocoon thing again that's going on, which then shows up in the sculpture here. So I'm talking about, this could be a knee, or it could be another horse head, and this whole idea, I'm trying to keep it, again, keep that energy going, and keep the idea of energy, and the idea that we're all just pulsing vibrational units as we go through. So I like this painting a lot. It's got a counterpart, a night painting that was very more expressive, not going after things on a molecular level, but going after just as if a drawing, simple drawing with brush and oil and line, which I really like to do better. And so there's that, and then that's the end of that. So back over here now, only 2 or 3 of these I've made of the same idea with a ceramic kind of figurine. This is porcelain, I think, with celadon glaze, which is what the Chinese use and get that really milky thing. And then George again, Ferrara, made this beautiful base, and very simple. So this basically got a piece of aluminum tubing in here, so we can get it to be vertical. So this is the first time this has actually ever been seen in a show, and then I love how it repeats the whole vertical of this painting here. And then we had this little painting here left over that was, I found at the framers. We were going to put another frame on it, and I thought, well, let's just put it in the show. And so here again is the light, these kind of halos surrounding this little playful, sweet horse with the snake. And actually in the shaman world, the snake is not the evil and of the devil. It's more talking about DNA and RNA, the twin snake, which is the medical healing symbol. So you've got the DNA, RNA really when you're talking about snakes, you know, which is knowledge, enlightenment, waking up. And so here we have two more little cocoon persons, and then here's the allusion to them with the water here and the water here. And so it's a beautiful thing about the show was these things were lying around. We knew basically what was going to go where, and then we had at the end had these little leftover units, and this went bing, bing, bing here like this. And then I found a little a rock that was in the shape of a heart. And I thought, what the heck, you know? And this is like, I could just do this, you know, I could have my Wheaties with this every day, day and night doing this. So just to see these together, see these four that arrange themselves, talking about, and you don't realize it till later actually, till it's up, you're unconscious maybe on some level, and you're like, oh my God, angel over here, bing, 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 here, the whole corner's about this, whereas at the other end we're talking about night. Now we have this Indian figure. Wasn't even going to put this image in the show. This has never been shown before. I call it the shaman or the guardian, and it's basically coil-built clay and built up and just pull out the shapes. And then when I was finished with that part of it, I put the snake on top, and then the Western culture thinks of the snake as evil, but I think of the snake as like DNA, RNA, double helix, the symbol for wisdom. And I just like the way it just sat there on top of his head, relating to thinking and head and knowledge, and like that it was green for growth. So I found I think the Pegasus was one of the oil company symbols later on. I used it as a pierce to the ear with it. That's just over here. Found an ear, I think, feather and stuck that in. And so it sat around on top of my refrigerator for the longest time with a picture of Jesus Christ behind it. Somehow I felt the similarity there. And so we decided, and with the actually encouragement of a lot of the people in the show, said, well, you got to put that in. And I never showed it before. So we did. And because we made the brochure ahead of time, we had to correspond the show with what was in the brochure. And actually I brought Michelle in, and she made the show look so beautiful and just like put it up together maybe in a half an hour. And so the same thing happened with these horses. We knew that we had to have these four largest horses, as one is the clay source here and the bronze mimic of it is a big addition, and also it's patinaed, or like watercoloring with acid to resemble jade and turquoise. Same thing. This is a soapstone or alabaster piece here, which was the model for this bronze here, the larger bronze called Ossabaw, made at Ossabaw Island and off the coast of Savannah. I think we're about 12 out of 20 in that edition. So I wanted to put these little guys in as well, and they are, they're kind of like my marble collection, and they're all Zuni inspired, Navajo inspired, trying to make them as if nature made them. So it's, I just love making them in a hurry. They might be wood fired, they might be soda fired, they might be with John Tilton, crystal glazes. Satisfying event, and having all these things work. And actually, in a sense, this piece here is one of the focal points of the entire show. And I was really surprised. I mean, I didn't think it was bad or anything like that. I just never showed it. And I just noticed that this garnered a lot of attention, a lot of people, and it made me look at it anew as well. So very happy to have this in the show as well. Okay, here's two early ceramic works. I love them. They actually are banks. They have slots in the bottom. One says, "You can bank on me." And what they taught me was that they actually had a lot of drawing in them and on them in the clay. So if I'm just talking about peace in Israel and a lot of things that are finding their way through line, you look at the piece of volume with the piece of clay like this, and then you can get a lot of surface and drawing in it. So the smaller one, the gray blue one, actually had a glaze on it, and I cavalierly put a low-fired clay in a high-fired situation without even knowing it. And I live by the graces of all the great ceramic people that helped me out, because I actually know very little about it. I come at it from a sculptor's point of view. So we saw this thing in the kiln starting to crack, and if it had been left on and run through its course, it would have been a big blob of molten glass. So we brought it out, and it was cracking, and this was one of the very first pieces that spoke archaeological find to me. And because of this blue, rather than being a shiny blue and literally kind of half-baked, has this great, it's like, it reminds me of one time flying back from California and looking out the window and watching the clouds go by, and it's just the same effect here with the blue and the brown and the ancient part of it. So I just love this piece. This is like probably one of my favorite all-time pieces. And it's a teacher, and it was talking about wabi-sabi, whatever happens is good, and if it's really broken, I'll glue it back together, and I have fun doing that. And in that healing, there's a healing in that where you're gluing and making something whole again, you're making a gestalt. And I really probably would call myself a repairman more than anything, and I just love it. And I do it with paintings as well. I've had paintings that I sawed in half. I talked about the dolphin that jumped the moon where it was sliced to ribbons, and so we put it back together. It's all fodder for the fuel of life. So this piece, this red piece, I think has probably been burnished and polished maybe 20 to 30 times, trying to get this luster to it, in the sense that when you look at an old Aztec pot, it glows from within, just like a Rembrandt glows from within, and that's really what I'm trying to do. So we got, what thing they have in common now is this kind of dull, matte, meaning not shiny, kind of hopefully luster. And anyway, two of my favorite pieces, made as a pair, exist as a pair. So this is where we can talk about what I call the spirit catchers, and it's also called river, and it's as if it's in river. Same thing, the theme comes up again with that wood-fired piece there. Archaeological, I think it's called a reliquary, which actually is for human ashes and horses' ashes. And then we started off initially with the dolphin jumped the moon and that long process, and then as a byproduct, the landscape underneath the belly of the horse turned into a green traveling figure through time and space, in between the spaces of things, and we called them spirit catchers or angels, or I don't know what to call them. But they are a congealing of energetics that then have really basically a lot of energetics in between the spaces of things on a molecular level. And that's basically, I'm looking over here now again at the dolphin jump the moon. And if you really, a lot of times when I couldn't figure out what to do with paintings, I would turn them upside down, and then I'd see clouds in them, and I'd see the thing is going as within, as without, as below, as above. And so what we're talking about, this dolphin jump the moon, a major painting, it's got a story, you see figures in it, but really it could be 1 square inch of your face or the bottom of a shoe. That whole molecular unit. So what we're saying there, nature has no straight lines, it's circular, it's all fuzzy, Appaloosa camouflage looking like that. And once you get that understanding, then even if it looks like, you know, a Chuck Close is talking about the same thing with breaking things down into units, you know, fractals. In the computer world, same thing. So that's really, I used to be an abstract expressionist painter, and I love it, and I may go back to that and let the handwriting shine. So I would say that I'm a good painter, and this is a if and when I get to let my handwriting dance and not kind of chipping away with it like a handle. So I love this kind of, you know, here I'll let the brush with the oil paint brush just become a line, and I wish I could throw a line better, but there we go, some talking about legs, and then this sort of spirit catcher person entity came And I kind of like it. I've been out at night on rivers with, you see the horizon line, and could be the Amazon forest over there. And really, you can sometimes you say a painting comes home, it finds itself, and this one did when this eye, and you've seen horses like this, when they had that eye looking back, they're curious or they're wondering, and then that sort of set the whole tone of the picture. So it may not be finished, but it's okay because it's for what it's talking about, it works. And this is one of about 50 of a kind of family, mostly because of the poster board size. So it was, I think, 28 by 44, which we found in a hospital outside of Detroit when Paul Fulcher and I were teaching at Wayne State. And some of them took a long time, but this is actually a drawing. I peeled the top layer off of it, and then we got down to basics, and I treated it, and then this was done in 1978, 1979. It's called Peace in Israel, which was about that momentous time when I guess it was Begin and Sadat got together and set up a little peace there for a while. So it's just the same way that these processes, just one thing, you know, rolling out of another, very linear. I start most of my work looking and grasping and finding through the pencil line or the brush line, and layers and get two things overlapping and trying to see if this one's working and that one's going to work, and then it almost sets up a kind of movement when things are going boom, boom, boom across here like this. So again, the figures evolve out, strange little people. I don't know where, the very Egyptian type of winged creature here, female creature, 3 or 4 horses. Just like the drawing part of it a whole lot. So we had this piece here, and it's called Sleepers Awake, which just somewhere I wrote on it. I had written on it, so writing notes to myself, and it was sitting in the kitchen wall at home, and I knew that these pieces were lining up to kind of make a night place, and so I thought, well, this is great. We knew this here was happening, and it seemed like it needed to fill in, and it was perfect. And it just sat around on the floor sometimes in its formative stages, and it didn't read right. It was actually a lot of times the ones that are so awkward, like, what is this person doing here? Is it a person? Is this going on? And this needed filling in. And you know, you need lots of empty space sometimes, and you gotta like not think much about it at all. So this piece here is a great teacher. It's called Gentle Secrets in the Night, one of the really early pieces, had a long history. And it's a teacher because it showed up early, many years ago, probably in the 80s, and brought itself home rather quickly. Very early element of here's the horse and rider, then the snake motif would show up, which also defined the rear of the horse, and here's a kind of emerging figure. All of this predates the spirit catcher over there, which is like talking about from this vehicle, the carrier of the horse, which is melded and made same with this kind of human figure, and then out of this human figure again in the Carlos Castaneda world, and this other apparition, the traveling astral person, which is always like the idea of this kind of like the Roman legions and the Native Americans would, you know, wear animal hats of their skulls and to actually become those energetics. And so the one thing that never changed was in the very beginning was this whole area, this kind of Monet's water lilies. I just went bing, 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 bing like that. And I would say one day I'll call myself a good painter when I can do the whole painting just like bang, 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 ba-doo, ba-doo, and do it in a couple of days and, you know, just say it and sing it, you know, like that. Anyway, this showed up here. I don't know what this painting is about, of any of them. It's just a huge mystery to me. It's just interesting. Head here to show movement. Another head here at the same time. In the water, all constant motifs. Faces coming up. Just learning, really, in some sense, learning how to paint. Learning what matrix is. How do you fill up a delineated thing like in a cartoon? So this happened, what did it say, 82, 91, a lot of it happened right away. The time span was that this was in a container, a little flimsy container that had, it kind of had the walnut veneer in it, and I needed that container to be broken down, and I didn't realize that this was inside it. And so I've got the saw and the whole container, I'm going, and I get to the end and the thing pops out. And if you look carefully, there's a band here. I had sawed this painting in two, and my girlfriend, Dee Dee at the time, just gasped. It was her favorite painting. Oh God. So, there it was, 2 pieces. Same archivalist in Miami, and he said, oh, just get that iron-on stuff that you put on and then put it in the bag. Don't take it apart. Don't take the stretcher off. And we did it, and there was a little gap about this much. We filled it in, stained it. And then George, at the Ice House Gallery, he made this beautiful reset frame here and put it in together. So again, it's like if you slash the thing through ribbons or if you accidentally cut it in half, that's what happened, okay? Thank you very much, and we'll fix it. And that's why I call myself a repairman a lot at the same time. But this is, Hiram Williams used to say paintings were breeders, and this is certainly a breeder. That means that the painting comes ahead of its time. You did it, some part of you that's unconscious or super conscious or gifted to you, and you don't really, it's really none of your business in a way. You have no idea what it is. You just, and a lot of times you get rid of it, and I've learned to like let it live for a while, and that's another reason they take so much time. I want to honor the fact that it came ahead of itself. And the same thing with the bronze master, Rick Frignacca. He would do these great patinas on things, and I wasn't ready for him. And then I lived with him, and then, oh, I see what he's doing. He, as a matter of fact, bless his heart, who's now passed, taught me so much about painting. He had the eye and the mind of a painter, and he was just an abstract expressionist, yet he was talking about the realities, the realism of what happens when you look in a mine where you see a giant piece of turquoise. So here's my giant piece of turquoise early on. Anyway. So now we kind of go over here, since this is next to us, and we have an ancient horse called Relic, and an also ancient looking bee, pronounced like the bumblebee, spelled B-I. I think I'll talk about the bee first. This will probably end up on the vertical with a stand, and again, George Farrar made this just a beautiful table plate stand for it. This is ceramic. The bee is a very ancient symbol. It goes back thousands of years. I've actually had Asian curators say, oh, you could have fooled me. I would have thought that was Neolithic 2,000 years ago. The older ones are very lumpy and bagel looking and crusty looking, and the new ones are almost like tires and smooth with inlay writing on them. Basically, my understanding is that the bee denotes the entire universe, the cosmos, the Tao, if you will, and the hole in it refers to the society or to the culture or to the family. Okay, very powerful symbol. And this is ceramic in a soda fire or wood fire process, which makes it look this crusty look and cracking, and all of these flaws to me are great advantages. They make it look ancient, which is really what my goal is. And I'm now making bees that are 20, 30 inches across out of clay, and then we've actually had them cast at the foundry, and then we patina them to look like jade or turquoise, which I think of as the healing stones. For example, of this horse now, the Relic, there are some that are very bright green, and I asked the bronze master, I said, well, what's the story with this one? And he said, well, let's see, Chinese tomb, 4,000 years ago, the bodies are decaying, the ammonia is changing the patina of the horse, the bronze horse that's in there. Imagine this, see it's got cracks in the legs. When this was a clay, it had chopsticks for legs, and usually you need to have more bushings. I didn't have enough paper and things wrapped around it. So we're firing it, and I saw it cracking, and I said, uh-oh, if they keep on doing this, the legs will break off, which they did eventually. So for 10 years, we had this Relic as a clay piece, literally half-baked, and I painted it, practiced painting with it with acrylic paint. I must have had 10 different skins on it. And then finally, we decided, let's make a bronze of it. So when it came back from the foundry after the mold was made, 2 of the legs were missing on one side, because you can't have anything that hooks in on itself in that process. So then after all that time, and I'm looking at the legs off of it, I said, what the hell, now it's time to fire the original. And so I just yanked the other two. Oh, I don't think I even did that. I said, I knew they were going to fall, I imagined they were going to fall off. So I then fired it, and this is the result of the one that we're going to go to next, is what you'll see. So notice this shape, minus the legs, is the same shape as the relic bronze. Okay, so knowing that now we got two of the legs already gone, we made a special kiln for it, we laid it down on its side, and we fired it. And beyond my wildest dreams, whatever they were, this is the result that I got. And I always say here, like, oh, you know, what did I learn? I'm gifted by these incidents and accidents. And when you're in the clay world, you'll hear ceramic people talk about the kiln gods. And you can do your best and really know what you're doing, which I don't. And I benefit from the mercy of all my friends in the clay world who really are wonderful people and allow me to fire these with them. So what the kiln god did with this is he broke the other two legs off exactly in this wonderful archaeological way. This is about the third time this has actually been out and being shown. It's that fragile, and it is still got the dust on it from the firing. And if you'll notice the cracks, look how it got dark in places, and it cracked up the neck and up in here, and even the back, it just lifted up just a little bit. It could have gone to shambles and just been particles. So I got this amazing, beautiful gift from the universe. You know, and I thought, oh my God, I get to have this. I get to witness this. I get to have this thing happen. So it sat without any legs, and it was done, and it's this beautiful pinks and mauves and orange, you know, hints of things like that. This is probably, you know, as satisfying as it gets, you know. And people say, well, what did you do as an artist all this time? Like, was it worth it? I say, well, you know, if you get 3 events in your life where you have something that speaks to you bigger than yourself and lets you go through the window and lets you jump into the giant ocean and lets you see what your true identity is as a creator, as a co-creator, is even a better way to put it, then, you know, that makes it worth it, you know. And you realize, you know, our true nature, which is that we really are divine. And we're not these, it's that old adage that we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so in this case, I get to be an artist. So very happy about this piece. It just showed me so much. It's just lucked out, just lucked out. So thank you, universe. This painting is called The Spirit of Micanopy. Didn't always have that name, but it went into a show about the area, so I decided to name it at that point, and names just come, and sometimes they change, but usually the piece tells you the name, the story, everything. Very few times, but probably I should do it more, some of my pieces are photo blow-ups, and then I work them after that. And I used to think, oh, I'm going to make it look really realistic, but of course I never do. So I may do a whole new thing where I spend more time doing photo blow-ups of things. This is a Yanomamo Indian from a black and white photograph fishing with bow and arrow. And then I worked it, and I worked it at the foot, for example, still not done. That's why it hadn't been finished, and I don't know how to, you know, I got a Rubens photograph, and I'm going to copy that, but it's basically been like it is. And this little business here is sort of like it's a cloud, a rectangular cloud dream kind of thing, and I've tried to put it into a night place where, like a Remington, those beautiful Remingtons when they show the campfire and the cowboys sitting around. And I'm trying the same thing with the one called Spirit Catcher Angel, and trying to show the idea of light, and that this is figure is illuminated through itself in the night. And as I worked it, the he from the photograph became a feminine figure and became a she. And so I started trying to dissolve the figure out a little bit and playing it on the river and working it to a nice place. It could be really quickly finished, you know, it's just like sometimes you go like that and then it's done. So I like it. As I get older, I think, well, so what? Maybe it's never going to be finished, but you can like what you like and accept the rest. So, okay. Now over here, this kind of little area is kind of the nighttime area. I talked before on the piece down there called Peace in Israel. This unit, this size, is about 50 of them. That's the only 2 that I have left over all these years. A lot of them with the blue background then automatically made it a night place, and a lot of times if somebody could subcategorize what I do as daytime pieces or nighttime pieces where the dreams happen, you know. And a lot of the 2D work is about dreams and visions and things that happen in between the spaces of your dreams, and those when you're up at 4 in the morning or not quite getting up and you're just kind of drifting around and things come and they show up, or when you close your eyes and you try to look at the back of your eyelids and not go off in a visual fantasy, you'll see light specks and radiating. So now I said on the other one it was doing a lot of drawing, and because we ripped the skin off the front and then basically had a soft, resilient kind of cotton paper background. This, what I found out once is that you can take testers, spray cans and use them, and then while they're drying you can come back in and work them. So we got it, instead of going, you know, I just take one pass with the green and another pass with the blue, which are translucent, by the way. And while they're drawing, then I would come back and work them. And this is a little figurine here, and it ended up being called Dawnbringer. Again, that time when just before the sun comes up. And I just like it so much. So this would be oil pastels, and I like that, you know, the thing is drying and I can come back and draw into it. And all of that is matrix and stuff, and really was teaching me about just letting things be. What you put down is going to do what it wants to do anyway, and you come to a balance with that. So this is called the Hopi drawing box, and this was my actual drawing box for 30 years. And so what happened is we had this Curtis photograph of this Hopi maiden, and this was emulsified on this kind of rock thing, and then it broke and fell. It fell and broke, and then so this configuration, look how it broke just right there. So I was just pooping around and I put it here on top of this, and I thought, well, that's nice. And then so some of these things were in here, and then inadvertently I just stopped drawing in it and imagined this not here. So things started getting added, like all artists and all people do. They have special places for things. So there's an old smoking pipe. There's a horse pipe that didn't work, and this was from somebody made this in the Penland School. And there's a little Indian elephant, and then this is from New Mexico. So it wasn't like I made a design and put these things together. These are 30 years of just things slowly arriving. A little Catholic Madonna here, a little Hopi thing, a little turquoise, a Chinese opium bottle, old pen, pencil. The latest one was this miniature turtle, and all things like this. So here it is, and it's like a treasure box. It's a reliquary box, you know. So that's what this is about, and it's really one of my favorite possessions and items, and it's got everything in it. So we'll keep growing. Can't put too much more in it, though. It'll start covering everything else up like that. So anyway, this ends our tour. I'm so pleased to be able to have the opportunity to show this, and I wanted to thank Brad McClinney especially for doing such great work and helping this show stay alive in the future. For very soon it will come down, and I'll miss it, and I'll miss this whole situation. So we'll have it on video, and you'll get to see it again. And again, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this little tour. show has been wonderful, a wonderful gift to see all of these things together, all these conversations back and forth across the room, all of these stories being told, all of these new acquaintances actually with us. And this is probably, when I get back to the studio, this will be the first one that we'll try to do. And then that Indian needs a little, you know, spirit of making little kisses here and there. You know, it's just it's a love-making affair, you know, and it's just like, and they bring out the best in you. So I think this is a good place to end the story with these paintings, and so we'll see what happens. Okay, love it.